Hello everyone and welcome back to another World of Tanks console video. My name is Xenozach, and today's video is a congratulatory video to World of Tanks consoles development team, dev team, whichever one you want to specify it as, for their 4th year of World of Tanks on consoles. 3 years for, I believe, on PC, 4 years for those of us who've been around since the beta, Xbox 360 and Xbox One. It's great to see that World of Tanks has made a progress from the original starting date and what World of Tanks was when it originally started on Xbox 360, and the smaller details, or in this case now that we're currently in our 4th year, finer details that World of Tanks has added to their game. A lot of it being that we've managed to catch up into the PC side of things fairly recently too, with the Chinese tank destroyers just being added to the game. So I decided, as a way of congratulating them, we look back a little bit on the past years and things that I personally enjoyed from their content that they released over the past years. Now, just to point out that I am one of the few players, if you are one too, that's considered a veteran, that's been around since the beta of World of Tanks, when I had originally seen this tanking game came out on the E3 release. I believe that was on 360 when I was watching one of the highlights when Wargaming presented this on stage, and I still have that video file saved on my computer just from their original Xbox 360 release. So again, this is more of just a look back on all the things that I truly appreciate that you guys have done for the community. Whether you're one of those few people that also like the game that like I do, or you don't necessarily have to. Again, I'm one of the more unique players that enjoy the content regardless of the ups and downs that the game has. At the end of the day, it's just a game, and in a more honorable quote, why you have to be mad. So let's get into the first part of this. My favorite part of World of Tanks, starting from the 1st year anniversary. Now, if you're wondering why I'm starting after the 1st year anniversary, World of Tanks had finally been moved up to the newer systems within their 1st year, with the arrival of it on Xbox One at the time, and I didn't upgrade on the 1st year when Xbox One had been released. I believe around the E3 they had announced the Xbox One. I don't remember right. I'm a little bit off on dates for release of Xbox One, but for the entire 1st year of World of Tanks on console, I played it on 360 because, again, that was the original console that I had started playing games on. And we can go through the video just the same as always. So, of course, World of Tanks console was celebrating their 1st year, and as the game had been launched on 360, that's mostly where most of the shots for the game were broadcasted through. Again, in the 1st year, if you're new to the channel, I hadn't really played as much, but again, it was the World of Tanks game. It had interested me because, one, I get to drive around a tank, and if you don't like that about World of Tanks, well, I'm afraid this game is just not for you. But I really love driving around the tanks in the game. I had come from the Battlefield series, jumping right into World of Tanks. It made me feel great. I didn't have to worry about running around with a character just to try to get a tank and then get blown up by someone else. Now I get to go tank against tank, and it made me feel great to be able to drive around powerful machines. I believe in the 1st year, when this was released, I believe the first tier 10 tank that I originally got in the game was the Death Star. I had worked my way up the British tank destroyer line at the time, and was trying to decide between upgrading my Tortoise to the Death Star or upgrading my M103 to the T110E5. And between the flip of a coin, just because, you know, now that we all know the game even better as a community, the Death Star was just a way to go. But you can see that they were very grateful for the year that we had given them back then. Then to do so, they gave everyone a tier 2 light tank, which was the T7 combat car. Great little light tank when we first played it, and quickly died off because it just, when it went against higher tiers, it just couldn't penetrate anything, including itself sometimes. It did had some really random ricochets on trying to shoot itself, but they gave out, you know, small events. This was their first year celebrating the game. Moving on, this was the 12th of February 2015. Jumping ahead one whole year, because there was small updates and stuff to the game. I'm not really trying to focus on that. I'm just focusing on the bits that I loved about World of Tanks. No worries. The PlayStation 4 launch trailer. For those of you who are on PlayStation 4 or PlayStation 3, that if you had a PlayStation console, this was the time for you guys to be able to join in and enjoy World of Tanks on PlayStation 4. Now, one of the big disputes, of course, is always going to be, well, PlayStation, you don't necessarily have to have a PlayStation 4 or a PlayStation Pro account to play World of Tanks, whereas for Xbox, everything revolves around their Microsoft Xbox Live type of deal. That was the big issue, I believe, at the time, but most of the players, again, it was great for people to be able to enjoy the game on a different console. I believe at this time I had a PlayStation 3, and I thought about upgrading to the PlayStation 4, but the Xbox One at that time seemed more interesting, and I decided to purchase the Xbox One. But just to give you, since I did the honors of the first year, let's watch the PlayStation 4 release trailer.
Rated T for Teen.
So again, World of Tanks on PlayStation 4 was one of those things that launched, and I just noticed all the stuff that popped up, and I was like, that seems oddly Quickie Baby and Jingles-esque. I guess YouTube really does know my past search history. So at that point, they had finally managed to get the beta for World of Tanks onto PlayStation. They had gotten the PlayStation exclusive tanks. For those of you who are on PlayStation, I don't have it. I'm sure you're quite enjoying your unique tanks and tank bundles that you were able to purchase when you originally got the game on PlayStation. That being the US T1 E6-PS, which is the PlayStation exclusive for owning that. Xbox and Xbox One did get their own, I believe. We have the X1. They got the PS. Along with probably one of the more unique things, which I felt a little bit robbed when I read this. They got an exclusive German Panzer II J-PS. There's not an Xbox One version. I feel so robbed. Console team, you betrayed me. All jokes aside, it's great to see that they decided to release the Panzer II for PlayStation users, as that little premium tank is definitely overpowered on PC. I've seen it on console a few times. It's a really rare tank with tier 4, even though it's a tier 3, tier 4, it's some tier 5 type armor, if I remember right. So, very, very interesting to see that they had actually released that. I don't believe this tank has actually ever been sold again since then, really. If it has, feel free to point it out. I really haven't seen it at all. It might be locked behind some of those paywalls we all hope we had. Moving on, we finally get into their second anniversary. Oh, by the way, the date for that was actually January 19th, 2016. February 10th, 2016, we actually got our second Xbox anniversary, or the, I believe this was the actual official release for them on PlayStation, because I believe the launch trailer was for the beta, and then the official game was released along with the anniversary. I want to say that. Don't quote me on any of this. I'm just going off of what I'm reading at the same time. And the same thing that they carried over currently as you are celebrating our 4th year. You get to see the statistics of the tanks or the game itself being played over 133 different countries playing, 7,740 or 7,746,601 registrations worldwide, 78,104,208 battles fought, 3,392,326 days played, and 19,472,415,428 shots fired. I'm not even going to attempt this number anymore because I don't know what goes past that. But you can see that everybody was loving their game. This was a lot less controversial. You got to play World of Tanks. If you were complaining about it, I feel sorry for you because, driving a tank should have been just as much interesting as everybody else. In my 2nd year, I decided to pick up a little bit more. I started losing interest. I believe this is around the time Call of Duty basically started dying out for me. The last game I played for Call of Duty, I believe, was Black Ops 2. I had Black Ops 3 just because, again, I enjoy the zombies mode, but that's Call of Duty. I'd begun drifting away from more of those games, and World Tanks became more of my primary focus as far as gaming became. And I love the fact that they started giving out more stats in their yearly release or for their yearly anniversary, showing you what tanks were played the most between Tier 2 to Tier 10. The German Tier 10 heavy at the time, the U100. The only one available at that time was pretty much basically your top tier games were filled with E100 versus 215Bs and E5s. A few IS7s at the time. The IS series, the IS7 was still relatively new to players. They didn't really, but again, the E100 was the most played Tier 10 vehicle at that time. E75, it's no popular. That again from Tier 8, 9, and 10, these tanks was pretty much one of the more sought after Tier 10s in the game for the German line, of course. Favorite camos, winter, top 3 consumables, the 100 octane gasoline. That's the standard consumable, not the premium. The small first aid kit and the small repair kit. And I assume the 100 octane was mostly because of those tier 2 and 3 lights that just said, screw it, I don't care about a fire, I just want to be able to drive faster. The T29, of course, being the most tank played in North America. The Tiger 1 being on EU, the KV1, and CIS? I don't know what that is. Somebody might want to enlighten me on that. And the Tiger 1 again on the Asia server. It's kind of interesting because I know we have NA East, NA West, and EU because we can play that. I haven't seen the other side, but I feel like they'd be able to play with each other the same way. I feel like EU gets probably the biggest on. If you're an EU player and you get to access the entire, side of the gaming for World of Tanks, please let me know. I didn't know you could access 5 servers. But that's interesting. T29 I could understand because the T29 was a very popular tank. Tier for tier, it's one of the best in the game. Anybody who tells you otherwise is pretty much lying to themselves at this point. And the Tiger was definitely one of those more sought after historical tanks for historical significance. I didn't go through the Tiger 1. I believe I skipped it, went for the Panther because I liked the mobility and the gun at the time before all the other tanks were introduced, and just played through as much as possible with the Panther and going up. I never went past the Panther. The Panther 2 I bought, researched, and I just gave up on going down the line for the German mediums because I kind of lost interest in it. But you can see that people were still enjoying World of Tanks console, and they actually pointed out some stuff that I don't think our newer players would even recognize. Some of the rarest medals in this game are interesting enough. I'm not exactly too keen on the Tarxis medal. If I did say that right, apologies if I didn't. The Rezena Heroes medal. The Rezena Heroes medal in World of Tanks in general is the rarest medal that you can have. And if you don't know what I mean, the Reminisce Heroes medal is basically one person killing 14 to 15 other players in their battle. That would mean that you would have to, that's not all that impossible considering most of the games right now are being lemming trained one side and leaving one player, whether they camp or not, on against, 14, 15 other people. It's not surprising in the least. But just in year 2 to have 77 of those medals earned is insane to me. Just the thought behind it was even better, just to be like, well, I want to earn that medal. Now at the time I didn't exactly know what the Reminisce Heroes medal, and I believe around this time is when I started looking into videos for World of Tanks. Of course, I'm pretty sure if you watch the Xenozat story that is currently on my YouTube, as I believe the main channel, or the main focus when you first come to my channel, basically showing that when you first look up anything for World of Tanks, whether that be console or PC, the main guys you find is Quickie Baby, the Mighty Jingles. And for console, as much as it hasn't been stressed over the past 2 years, I would say, is very different from PC. World of Tanks plays differently, ever so slightly, that statistics from these tanks compared to statistics from PC, even with the slightest change, affects the way that the tank itself can be played, or affects the way that the tank itself plays compared to that of the PC competitors itself. Our players like myself at that time didn't realize that. You carry on pretty much with everything you learn from that. And it's not to say that you can't learn from it, it's just to say that whenever you're looking at the statistics and then you actually play the game, you will notice the difference occurring slightly often. Moving on, we started going into the events that World of Tanks started hosting. Now, there's a couple events that was released prior to this. I just couldn't find the articles for them. I had to go back through every news article that I could find on the portal, and the portal only went up to the first anniversary and continuing forward. But I know, if you're watching this video, you know what the Tog C is. HMS Tug 2 is the most requested event that we as the community have asked to bring back, besides the Mars event or the what was the other one, the Halloween event, the toy tanks. This is where World of Tanks really brought itself into its own and kind of made it its own stepping stone by borrowing some of its World of Warships mechanics and bringing it to console. So let's check out the video quick.
From the developers that brought you sights never before seen that you could actually experience for yourself. Like flying tanks on the moon, fearsome battles on Halloween, and large-scale warfare under your Christmas tree. Now bring you the next innovation in tank warfare. Wargaming proudly presents You spoke and we listened. We took the tank that everyone loves to call a boat and turned it into a boat. Introducing the HMS Tug 2. Get your sea legs on the tugboat in a special new mode. Set sail on a voyage of water and warfare. Be warned, these waters are open for 1 weekend only. Let's go overboard and make a big splash. Only in World of Tanks.
So, the HMS Tug 2 was the best event that I honestly played. I played this game mode to death. It was one of the funnest events I'd played at that time, just in general. And I got interested in World of Warships at that point, but I didn't have the PC to run it or anything like that. They basically borrowed the elements from their World of Warships client and incorporated it into World of Tanks on console. This is why everyone pretty much assumed that World of Warships wasn't too far behind and coming on to console. I don't know anything about that. I wish I did, because I love playing World of Warships on PC now, but different topics, different topics. And this basically revolved around driving around the Tog in an open. It was actually, I believe, a smaller version of a map, on console, and it was the best event, in my opinion, probably to date, just in randomness that they could have done. And driving around in this thing, I have the Tog too, and I wish it still had this mechanic in it to be able to fire not one. It basically fired in an artillery fashion, and the event itself was just hilarious to watch. I really wish, and I know the community is pretty much in agreement on this, that World of Tanks console team, please bring back the tugboat. Please, we're begging at this point. It's a great event, and it's just enjoyable, which is what you want in your game to begin with. It's one of those things, man. Next we move, we'll move on to a different thing, but since this video is getting quite long, I think we'll come back to this in a part 2. So hopefully you guys stick around for part 2 and enjoy that. I'll catch you in the next video.